All right. Good Monday morning. It's February 2nd. Hold on. 2026. Um, Welcome to Collision Coffee Talk. However, my Keurig is in a ton of pieces downstairs in my kitchen because it suddenly decided not to work. So instead of coffee, I'm having to go with the super coffee. Um, it's winter. You just need a nice hot cup of coffee to get your day going. So it's already a challenging Monday morning for me, but this one's going to be fun. There's a lot going on. Probably a lot that people don't even know about. Last week we posted on the Facebook page and across LinkedIn about Farmers' announcement to a parent announcement that they're ending their DRP program as, everyone else knows it. And it's basically going to become a MSO only game to play just in a few markets or whatever. And there's other insurers that have been sort of beating that drum. And there's just, kind of like there's a lot happening. And I think a lot of people don't understand. And so this episode is really more, it's sort of like the tinfoil hat and the rabbit hole. So if you're one of those like, I don't trust the government, kind of, we have found your show. This is definitely going to be the one that you like. So we're going to talk about the criminal narrative. This one's ramping up in a lot of different ways. Um, I expect field level adjusters to sort of have assumptions and biases and things. I don't expect to see a lot of these biases spoken out loud in the ways and that I'm seeing them lately. So we're going to talk about criminal narrative and what insurance companies are doing flat out intentionally against body shops. There's no other way to paint it or mask it. PPG seems to have decided to go to war with 3M, or maybe it's Sherwin-Williams. I'm not real sure, but we'll go through some of the announcements PPG made last week and sort of things that shops need to be paying attention to. Is Allstate guilty of criminal negligence? This one is sort of, I can't believe I couldn't believe it either when I got it. So we're going to go through and talk about that. The State Farm settlement bonanza, what it means when an insurer is running around trying to settle claims very, very quickly, or not claims, but litigation very, very quickly. Celette's making some moves. We're going to talk about that. What are some of the real issues with ICE? And then some fakes and some scams and some things that are going on in the industry that I think is um, entertaining. I mean, it's entertaining to me. We're gonna walk through a couple of things that have happened and talk about some things. Okay. So this one I really want to talk about because I've gotten involved lately in several different states and in several different levels of claims around what I'm calling the criminal narrative. And it's extremely dangerous for a lot of different reasons. And so we're going to go back to good old Chip Merlin and the Merlin Law Group because he published this story last week, and it was really fitting because of everything that was going around of the other files. I have some court cases going on. There's some depositions. There's some things that are in trial. There's all these things that are going on, but there seems to be this sort of rising commonality there. This particular story from Chip is about a contractor down in Florida, and um, there is this general belief, and so we'll just labeling it as a strategy in psychology that helps to diffuse biases. So we're just going to label it. There is this generalization across the aisle in the insurance company of a couple of things. Number one, public adjusters are terrible, bad, no good people. All they do is inflate claims and charge insurance companies too much money, and they're bad for consumers. Contractors, roofers, those guys are bad too. All they do is inflate claims and make it more expensive for insurance companies. They don't like for body shops, you're the same as a contractor. They don't like you either. For you adjusters that are or IAs that are out there doing RTAs or whatever, they now are likening you to public adjusters as how bad and whatever you are. And then there's this desire to really just attack people. So this particular contractor was targeted and charged with insurance fraud and some other things. what was really interesting is it was sort of like the right hand and the left hand didn't know what was doing. The one side of the fence had not, basically their investigation, they didn't have enough to do anything, but they still charged this guy anyway and made a huge public deal about it. And that's every time I think back, and those of you in the comments or whatever, correct, give me the right dates because I know I'm going to be wrong. I want to say it was maybe like 15 years ago. The bar over in California did a bait, it's like a bait car. They would drive around and ask people to write estimates and try to capture shops into doing things that were illegal or wrong. And they sort of charged a whole bunch of shops, some of which were very well known. One of which was a gentleman that also had a TV show and did custom car building, Rich Evans, who I know and really thought really great things and still do of. But they charged all these shops. Now, none of those charges stuck. It ended up not, but they held this huge press conference. They listed all of these businesses. They called out the owners. I mean, there was this whole public perp walk of shaming that was done. And then all of those people ended up innocent. Same thing here with our contractor. They made all of this big deal about it, drug this man through the mud, held press conferences. Look at us. We're so great. We're defending whatever. And then no charges and everything ends up getting dropped. He can't necessarily get that reputation back. And anytime somebody goes and Googles his name or his business, that's going to pop up. It's always going to be there. What's interesting is you actually have insurers now using these same tactics against collision repair shops. And the number one thing that they've really started to do, we haven't seen a whole lot of like charges and perp walks to the extent that we have with the um, commercial side of this. When I say homeowner side of this, we're like roofers, like we saw the roofing contractor in that Iowa got arrested and they made a big deal of it. And then this contractor, we haven't seen that, but it is coming. So I definitely want to make sure because what we're seeing now around the collision repair industry is how the insurance companies are using NICB. So NICB is the National Insurance Crime Bureau. It's sort of a reporting agency for member insurance companies. So you're a member of NICB, and it's for SIU when they're doing investigations. They report what they're working on up and through the NICB, and it allows other members of NICB to see and gain some insights into like what you're investigating. SIU departments from multiple insurance companies work together. What we're seeing now is there's this large amount of toddler behavior from insurance adjusters because they just haven't been trained correctly. They don't know their role. They don't know what is legal and not legal. We've seen them go on shops and leave Google reviews. You're not a customer. Why the hell are you leaving a Google review? Um, but but they if they don't like what they're charged, they don't like what the total. This is a lot of total losses. If they don't like what that is, then they try to make a referral to SIU. Well, SIU typically is going to open that file and go, yeah, there's nothing here, and close the file. But now they're reporting those files up through NICB. And I guess if I flip hats, I'm going to look at it and say, well, I'm interested to know if any other insurers are having problems with XYC body shop. And can we have do we have any synergy to work together? But it ends up looking like there's an open investigation into these facilities. And it's starting to show up in like depositions and hearings. You have people, going, this shop's being investigated when there really isn't an open file and there really isn't an investigation going on. But it's like, it's this, I probably at the heart of it, it is intentional. It's people that I always say when you're going to get into law enforcement or whatever, they give you a personality exam because there's some people that just shouldn't have authority, right? They're not mature enough to handle it. They'll be the bad cops. They'll abuse people. They'll get the excessive force charges or whatever. There are some people that absolutely should not be adjusters. They don't have the ability to detach themselves from the process. They take it personally. They want to get their get backs. I have that. I mean, I always tell people very transparently, I have that kind of personality, right? I love a good fight. I'm never going to run from anything. And I have to, like, when I was working claims, I had to have these active conversations with myself about, this isn't about you, this is about this customer and the policyholder, whatever, take yourself out of it, make sure you're doing everything that is, in keeping with not just the law, but what your fiduciary responsibility is. But we have a lot of people that aren't hired with the right personality test, aren't given the right training, definitely aren't giving the right supervision. I have managers now that are going and doing, Progressive, this one's for you, that are going and doing court history searches and then using NICB and sending that information to customers and going, did you know the shop you chose is um, open? There's an open investigation against them for fraud. And did you know that the shop 2 years ago had a lawsuit where an insurer had to sue them over total losses? And it's like, that, what are you doing? Like, you don't even know what you're communicating. I mean, you don't get the whole file in an ICB. And if you're in NICB running around and doing searches that aren't relevant to the task or what you need to be, I don't just get to go into NICB and just go, I wonder who's in here today. Like, there's some responsibility to it. But just so that you know, being in, if anybody tells you you're in NICB, it's not that big of a deal. Um, I think probably most of us know, that there's people that don't like maybe what the charges are or whatever. It does allow individuals to share the data. So that is how insurance companies, particularly SIU departments, share. I worked in SIU for a while. There are some definite benefits, and NICB is a really good partner. And a lot of times, when you get the information right, particularly from multiple insurance companies, they come in and take it to like federal law enforcement or whatever. They're able to sort of carry that, carry the stone a little bit further than what you can just as an employee of an insurance company. They'll help with investigations. They'll help with law enforcement, and that will stay in there as long as something is considered active. So for a lot of these, it looks like people are just opening a file. There is no active investigation. That claim closed, the total loss settled, whatever. So there's nothing happening, but those things are still showing opening, and it's just really more of this effort to specifically um, paint certain people, whether it's a public adjuster, a contractor, or a body shop, in a very negative light to try to go, look how bad they are, look how good we are. You should listen to us and do what we say versus that over there. Also, last week, as this started to double down a little bit more, um, the Illinois Department of Insurance, right? These are the people that so far have sent official financial warrants to State Farm, and State Farm's told them to pound sand and ignored the warrant. So if I'm the Department of Insurance in Illinois, I'm probably not as worried about anybody else in my state right now other than insurance companies. But wait, um, Illinois decided to issue a sort of a memorandum of for public adjusters. And the reason I want you guys to pay attention to this is that I think there is always so much attention that goes to homeowners, and public adjusters are typically only seen as um, something that serves for homeowners. Certain states, you're required to be a public adjuster before you can do RTAs or anything. Like, for instance, Kentucky is one of those. So please make no mistake. Even if you are in a state where PA license is not required or a PA license isn't even available, if you're doing RTAs, ACVs, diminished values, you are seen in the same light as these public adjusters are. And I've noticed lately an extreme uptick in interest of insurance companies attempting to try to like cut off some of these what they think is abuse, or they think, you got PAs and body shops working together to just defraud. Same thing. And I always used to tell my adjusters, look, I don't care if they hire a PA or not. I don't care if they hire Jesus on the file, right? I owe what I owe. If it's $10,000, it's $10,000. They can hire anybody they want. If I don't owe anymore, I don't owe anymore. I don't pay more because, oh, well, now you get somebody involved. So if you're paying more when there's a public adjuster or an adjuster involved, it's because you didn't adjust the claim properly. It's not because somebody's broken some sort of rule or is cheating you or whatever. It's very simple. You owe it or you do not owe it. There's never a, well, I wouldn't have owed it unless they hadn't gotten somebody involved. So please don't use public adjusters, body shops, DV. Please don't use anybody as a cop out for whatever your severity ends up being. If you are consistently low and consumers in your market are consistently having to go get outside help, that should be a market conduct study. That should not be something that punishes people. But I want you to pay attention to this paragraph. So we're going to read this paragraph together. It has been brought to the department's attention that some Illinois public adjusters have a practice of using a third party to generate client leads. This practice violates the public adjuster law unless the licensed public adjuster ensures that the third party lead generator is licensed as an Illinois public adjuster. Okay, why is that important for you guys? And I'll throw that back up there in case anybody now wants to pull a little bit, read that. All right, so what was funny is when this one got posted, some guy said, well, great, how do I get Google certified? Because I get most of my leads off Google or whatever. But for you body shops and for you IAs, I am very aware, and I always say, the car never lies, and we don't lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate anyone that does. Some of you, whether you've sold your shop, for whatever reason you've sold your shop, whether you got fired, there's an adjuster down in the South that got fired. Like, they're not an adjuster, but they were a body shop manager, and they literally could not fix a car right. Like, almost everything that came out of there was a post repair inspection. They were so bad they got fired. And then now they've become a post repair re-inspector, and I'm like, I guess it takes one to know one, but there are a lot of people, for whatever reason, you've decided that being a advocate or an IA on the collision repair side, whether that's going to be post repair inspections, it's going to be DV, it's going to be RTAs, it's going to be ACVs, whatever it is. Some of you are going to body shops and you're marketing and advertising your service to body shops. Some of you have even sent emails to shops where you will offer some sort of incentive. I'm going to give you $50 for everybody that hires me to do their DV or do their whatever. This is what the Illinois Department of Insurance is talking about. That's a violation. And like I say, if you have a state that requires you to be licensed, if you have to be a licensed appraiser, if you have to be a licensed adjuster, or you have to be a licensed public adjuster, if you're doing that, you're breaking some rules. It may not be a finite law, but there is definitely an ethical concern there as well. Um, Consumers hire you, body shops don't. Right? The period. That's just not how that happens. It's okay for a body shop to help a consumer. It's okay to say, Miss Smith, it sounds like this might be something you would be interested in. We have other customers that have had this happen to them. They've had good luck doing this, but you can't orchestrate and arrange everything. And if you're getting money back, be prepared because it could be a massive statute violation. It could carry the penalty of a felony, and you could become a convicted felon because you wanted to give a body shop $50 back on some sort of whatever. Um, but but what they're talking about is they're basically saying contractors telling customers to go hire PAs so that they can get their roof replaced or get their kitchen remodeled or doing whatever. You just need to know that that same concept really applies to us here in the body shop world. You guys, I think it's great. We need more people that want to do post repair inspections. We need good people that can do right to appraisals. We need good people that can help with ACVs and all these things. But you're not marketing yourself to collision repair shops. And they are tracking that. They are sending out, like right now, they are doing lots of examination under oaths with consumers who are invoking RTA or using a third party advocate. It's part of the insured duties. Like, I can't just say I don't want to do an EUO. They're looking for your contracts. What contract did the customer sign? They're looking for how someone was paid. Like, who paid for this? Like, show me the canceled check or your credit card statement or whatever, who paid for these services. They're now sending out basically like affidavits to if the claim's going to get close to umpire, they're now asking that affidavits be sent out to everybody to, swear that you have no bias or attachment or any of those things. The hard part about that is we do all know each other. Most of us don't like each other. Like, there's a lot of people in the IA world that I'm very aware of, and I couldn't stand them, but I know them, and we end up at the same. I remember years and years ago, ICAR used to have these really big conferences, and they were where some of the best training and education could happen. You'd go to these ICAR conferences, and everybody was there. Um, you go to some of these attorney conferences, and we're all sitting in the room, all looking at each other, like we all know each other, and you know the shop, so it's sort of a sticky widget on how you answer some of those. But that's what's going on. So that same sort of like disdain, that same bias of like from the insurer side, where they assume that everybody that does this for a living is you're just a criminal and you're just trying to get extra money out of an insurance company. So the way that they think about public adjusters is now the way that they think about you. Body shops, you've probably known this for a long time, that that's the way they think about you. But they also think about that on the other to the other people. I get a little tickled when I'm dealing with an adjuster that's repping an insurance company. They somehow feel that they're special. And I have to kind of go, honey, they don't like you either. I mean, you're a necessary evil. I can't tell you all the times I used to sit in corporate and bitch and complain about IAs, particularly the ones that came from the firms that we were connected with, whether that was Eberl or Crawford or whatever. Like I was like, are you getting people with a pulse and an IQ, or am I just getting somebody that was willing to tie their shoes and put on a pair of khakis and come to work today? Uh, but know how they think about you. Okay, so this gets deeper. This is all in the last week. It was like, wow, this week is wearing me out. Okay. Um, so after we have this, there's this gentleman on gentleman, we'll use that term loosely. Um, Stephen Badger. So he's a lawyer with a law firm. They represent insurance companies. I mean, I like his style. His style of using the internet is exactly the same as mine, which I find interesting that he's a professional and a really good guy, and I'm a troublemaker and a hack and whatever. I'll live with it. What Steven likes to do is he likes to go find posts from other people. Does that sound familiar? Post them and then sort of drag them across the internet with what he believes is his superior wisdom and knowledge and experience. Okay, he does have experience. He is an attorney. He has done a lot of trial. If I'm going to listen to somebody do the other, have an opinion that's opposite of mine, that's probably a good person to listen to. He has a blog. He posts all over LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, file in the Merlin group, well, you can go to LinkedIn and also find Mr. Badger here. But he picked a lady who is working as a PAIA. And she had she posted that she had a win today and that it was really good for the policyholder. And of course, he screenshotted it and drug it. He does a lot of State Farm stuff. We'll just put it that way. So he likes to drag the State Farm things. And just sort of went off over, as an appraiser, is it your objective to win? Yes, that's why I got into this, right? Like I get up every day and I want to, if I'm taking a position, I want to win. I want to win but I always tell people I will get in a fist fight before I'll admit I'm wrong. I want to win at everything, right? That's just the way it is. Her wording is not bad. I mean, he's an attorney. Do you ever take a case that you want to lose? No, you take a case that you want to win. That's just, that's what we do. So he's dragging basically her. Um, and then in his this post and then one other one that he's had, he's basically is like, it's time that we have some regulations and some rules on who can and can't be an independent umpire or an appraiser or whatever. And I'm just like, dude, I will agree. I would love a lot more rules and regulations on who can and can't. I think it's one of the things Texas is looking at right now is that, hey, if we're going to have mandatory RTA and all the policies, then what sort of way do we do to establish some sort of quality or, ethics or whatever in this. So I'm okay. I would be okay with that if we had that for insurance adjusters. There was a time it was hard as hell to get a job as an insurance adjuster with a company. Like the waits were crazy. I remember from my offer and acceptance letter to my actual start date was almost a month because after you accept, there was an FBI background check. I mean, you couldn't have a speeding ticket, you couldn't have anything to get, to be an adjuster. Now it's like you got a pulse, great, we're going to put you on the phones tomorrow. So they have no training. They're not going through claim school. They're not learning the policy. They're not, I mean, they're basically hired and the next week they're sitting on a desk answering the phone. So if we're going to have standards for people that want to be IAs or independent appraisers, Mr. Badger, I am all for that as long as we do the same thing. So, in a lot of states, even if that state has an adjuster requirement or whatever, if you work for an insurer, it's almost like you're given a pass. The insurer says, "Look, we train them. We'll be responsible for them, whatever," and so you're immediately eligible to begin handling claims. Let's just stop it. I mean, let's face up that turnover and everything, and departments and training departments are closed. Let's make everybody have to be licensed individually. And then let's make people accountable when they screw up. I love, is it Washington State that has the rule that the adjuster individually can be held liable for how they handle the claim? I think that's great. If we do that, Stephen, if we put the insurance companies where they have to have a little bit more thought and diligence in who they hire and how they train them, then I'm all for other people having it. But I want to go a little bit deeper into the things that Stephen has posted because he has a very deep hatred and a very deep bias towards anyone acting as an insurance adjuster, public, IA, whatever, that's working on behalf of the consumer and not working for an insurance company. So he goes on in one of his other posts um, that says, please pay attention. He's at a trade show and he's walking around a trade show and he is appalled at all of the services that are there that are offering to help train people in writing estimates. Xactimate is a homeowner's computerized estimating. So think of it as the homeowner's version of CCC. He's appalled at all the estimating training that is there. The company's offering to help people learn how to write better estimates, more expensive estimates, learn all the things that are the non-includeds in what you need to do. And then he's very, very angry that there are companies that are even offering to help write the estimates, right? Because let's just be honest, insurance companies have those, whether it's Snapsheet, whether it's Alacrity, whether whoever you want. Insurance companies have third parties that are writing their estimates all the time as well. Far be it, heaven forbid that a contractor or a body shop have somebody. But I love this. So this is an attorney. This is an attorney that represents insurance companies. This is his advice. I'm going to read it to you out loud. In fact, I'm going to share it so you guys can read along with me in that second box over there. My advice to insurance companies remains the same. When a third party supplementing calls you, okay, that could be an outside source. That could also be a body shop because technically you're a third party supplementing an insurance company. Politely tell them that you are happy to speak with your insured about whether additional amounts are owed on the claim and then hang up. Then send a letter to the insured asking if they believe more is owed on their claim. And here is his bias. We all know what happens then. We never hear from the insured because the work is done and the contractor had agreed to the job for insurance proceeds. Yes, I post this often. These companies are complete strangers to the insurance claim and repair work. They inject themselves into the claim process for their own financial gain. Companies like these are the core problem in today's claims process. No, they are not, Mr. Badger. The core problem in today's claims process is that nobody on the insurance company side knows how to be an adjuster anymore. You are correct with your assessment. Technically, the insurance company doesn't have to talk to a third party at all. Body shops, please keep that in mind. You need to keep that in mind in RTAs as well. So if you're going to encourage the customer to go ahead and finish the repairs, and we'll go through the RTA process at the end, This is sort of what he's talking about here, but it's anything. The insurance company doesn't have to talk to you. They're under no legal obligation to have a single conversation with you, to visit your shop, to do anything. They don't have to entertain any documents you send them, any photos you send them. It doesn't even matter if you've communicated it through their portal. They're under no obligation. His advice is correct. I can simply tell the third party, thanks for calling. I'm going to reach out to my customer. This is why it's important for you to make sure that you have permission to submit a supplement and that you have explained it to the customer prior to do that. If you're going to threaten, I've had shops call insurance companies and say, if you don't pay this, we're going to invoke RTA. You don't get to invoke RTA, boo boo. It's not your thing. So the customer needs to be very aware because if we do our job right, then Mr. Badger here will be wrong because when he does call the customer will be like, yeah, I do think I'm owed more. And here's why I think I'm owed more. I get this all. People are like, don't believe a word Kristen says. Yeah, listen to, I mean, there are a thousand other, not a thousand, there's probably 10 or 15 other consultants in this industry, collision repair wise. Some of them have been former body shop owners. Some of them have lied about being former body shop owners. There's all kinds of things out there. Don't take insurance. I love it. Don't take claims advice from somebody that owes you money. Some Yahoo foghorn leghorn likes to say that a lot. Um, don't don't listen to how to handle an insurance company from somebody that's never been an insurance company. That's just so if I've been preaching this for how many years now, right? Talk to the customer, get the customer permission, make sure send a written documentation after the phone call. You notice he goes, and then send a letter asking the insured all of those things that I'm saying. Here's your attorney for the insurance company basically saying the same thing. He believes that all the supplements that body shops and contractors ask for are all made up, that nobody's talking to the customer and getting their approval. The customer isn't choosing this repair plan, the customer isn't doing X. He's probably right in a lot of ways with a lot of shops, but if you ever had in black and white advice from an attorney who represents insurance companies he's telling you how he would advise legally for an insurance company to handle it, there's your best advice on what you need to do because there is a belief on that side of the fence that when you're sending these supplements in, none of it is owed, none of it is needed. It is you, we go back to that bottom paragraph, injecting themselves into the claim process for their own financial gain. So if I'm an adjuster that's never had any training and I don't know any better, and I believe things like this that Mr. Badger says about shops or contractors or whatever, then it's sort of my patriotic American duty to protect the consumer. I'm protecting them. I'm protecting insurance. I'm protecting all of these things by making sure that these frivolous and fluffy. I saw somebody post, I think it was Friday, that an insurance company called all their stuff fluff or whatever. Um, I believe that, and I can't get past it if I continue to allow him to push forward the narrative that he says that sort of makes sense. So you guys got to start. The customer sends in the supplement. Quite honestly, you don't. It's the way it was supposed to have been. It's the way it was. We go back pre-DRP world. You've got to get back there. And then I always like to tell people, but wait, there's more. um, I do enjoy reading this guy's post. He hates me, I hate him. There is no love lost here. His business model is my business model. I love why he does what he does. He gets lots of engagement from insurance adjusters and people going, "Yeah, these contractors stink." It's the same I guess content philosophy that I have. So I applaud his use of the internet correctly for what it does. But he gives me lots of really good. I don't want to say, see, I told you so, but for the people that are like, don't listen to her. There's a kid that calls himself an attorney out of Massachusetts running around. Coverall law. Yeah, not real happy with him either. But but wants to present this narrative that, oh, I know because I'm an attorney and whatever. I'm like, no, 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 you've not really, this isn't your cup of tea here, boo. Um, but but I love where he writes this thing down. So this is him because there are some people out there, contractors, and even people, oh, I don't know, that think they're lawyers who believe that they have this magic letter or magic pill for what's going to make an insurance company pay. And if you just do these things, you're going to get paid all the time. And I always like to tell people, hey, there's nothing that can get you paid but a judge. That's it. That's the only thing in this world that can guarantee to get you paid. There are things you can do that set up your file in the right order with the right documentation. And that doesn't mean OE procedures, but you've verified conversations, you've sent letters, there are things you can do that set up your file in the most advantageous way to get paid, but there's nothing that's going to guarantee that you get paid. Um, there's no bulletproof contract or whatever. I do tell people I can make a really good contract that means the customer has to pay me, but which one of you want to sue your customers? All of you tell me you don't want to do that. So, he made this post and I was chuckling because the same time he made it, it was when one of these little law firms was running around at industry events telling people that, oh, if you buy our package, you're going to get paid. And I'm like, you buy their package, they're going to get paid, but, but you're probably not going to get paid. Okay. I love it. Oh, where do I begin? All right, he calls it the magic letter that comes from roofers. I love his roof and sue. It's pretty freaking awesome. Like he does. Strangely enough, we probably have more in common than even he wants to admit. So what's his process? When he gets one of these letters that basically says, you've abandoned your right because you delayed, you forced me to go ahead and have to have my property repaired or whatever. Here's my contract. Here's my final bill. Here's my payment. Pay me, or I'm going to have to sue you. Insurance companies laugh when you get those letters. He says the first thing he does is he will ask the homeowner for confirmation that the roof has indeed been replaced. If we put that in auto body terms, I'm going to go, so you got your car repaired? Yeah. You're driving it? Yeah. Are you happy with it? Yeah. Okay. Then I'm going to ask for a copy of the contract between the homeowner and the contractor. I'm going to ask for a copy of the contract between the customer and the body shop. That's not an authorization to repair. That is not a direction to pay. Our little law firm is correct in that. Like you do need a services agreement, a real true contract. They're going to be multiple pages long, because there has to be some rules of what the shop's going to do, what the customer's responsible for, what's going to cost, who's responsible for paying, what happens if you don't get paid. Like we have all those terms and conditions have to be outlined. Um, they're looking for insurance proceeds. So anything in the contract that says insurance proceeds, that's generally when we talk about assignment of benefits, there's a difference between assignment of benefits and assignment of proceeds and how a policy reads. Um, Basically, the contractor agreed to do the work for whatever the insurance company paid. Um, I've seen some authorizations to pay forms that sort of have some of that language in them. That language is very dangerous. What he's basically saying is if it's in there, then you're screwed because you agreed to do the work for whatever was paid and we're not paying anymore. Um, so they usually confirm that the shop did receive or the contractor received some payment. And then he's going to write the following letter to the homeowner. Everybody pay attention. We'll read it along. I represent X Insurance. My client received your letter demanding payment for your roof replacement. I see that it's already been replaced by your contractor. I also see that you have an insurance proceeds contract, blah, blah, blah. I trust you have paid your contractor any proceeds that the insurer has previously paid. Accordingly, you have no further obligation to the contractor. Your contractor agreed to install the roof for the amount of payment. Um, I don't necessarily believe that he needs to be interjecting himself into the contract between the customer and the whatever. His job is to represent the insurer, not whatever. I see this a lot on auto, where the insurance company is asking for a copy of the contract between the customer and the body shop, and then the outside counsel or in-house counsel for an insurer. Travelers loves to use in-house counsel. Calls the customer and goes, "Hey, we don't think you owe this because of whatever." And I'm like, I get what you're saying. That's not your role, right? That's not what we do. Like, I don't, me interjecting myself and giving the customer advice on their contract between them and the body shop is the same as someone else interjecting and giving them advice on whatever. Like, it's that's a slippery slope. But anyway, and then he comes down here and says, his step five is with the roof already installed, the homeowner has no skin in the game. The homeowner has no interest in hiring a lawyer or invoking the appraisal clause. And because Texas doesn't allow an AOB, there's absolutely nothing the contractor can do, thus the claim goes away. Um, his last little paragraph there for a lot of you that are dealing with RTA denials or RTA freezing, where they sort of start and they stop, returning your calls or whatever. That's because attorneys like Mr. Badger here are coaching insurance companies to go, you basically are going to like force the homeowner or force the car owner or the policyholder to have to go hire an attorney. None of them are going to do that anyway, and we're never going to get sued and the claim's going to go away. Shops, you have to start deciding where what you think your future is. Like where do you see your future going? Um, what do you want to do? And there may be some interesting, or probably some of y'all should get together with your association and start thinking through some of these things. That's an attorney that represents insurance companies putting into writing that they just believe if you force them to into a position where an attorney has to be hired, where they have to go to court, that they're not going to go. Um, Ironically, we talked about that in the very early 90s through the DRP program. So if you've last week, I sort of um, talked about kind of a research and development and project paper from the 90s and kind of how it came forward. And those are some of the things. If we do this, then litigation will be extremely low. And the ones that actually do happen to pop off here and there, they'll be very easy to control or contain in a lot of ways. When an attorney that represents insurance companies puts all that stuff in writing, you should pay attention. You should read that stuff and think about how does that apply to my business. And then you need to know if claim count is low, if you've been doing well because of RTAs and some other things, you're probably about to see that come to a really screeching halt, where there's going to have to be attorneys used to compel umpire selection, or you're going to have to, do other things. How far are you willing to go? What are you willing to do? Because they're hoping that the customer just goes away. And a lot of you push customers down roadways and talk them into doing things, talk them into fighting. And, oh, we've had all these other customers and they've had great results. And then as soon as something goes sideways, you just abandon them and go, well, I guess you got to go find an attorney. That's that would be that's unethical to coach customers, push them down. I've got some of these RTAs where the car has been disassembled. The car was easily drivable. Customers now doesn't have a car that they can drive. They don't have a claim that's being paid, and they couldn't afford to pay the repairs out of their pocket, much less go hire an attorney. And then the shop that talked them into all this is sort of like turning their back on them. So um, pay very close attention to what's going on that homeowner side, and we're going to keep following this rabbit hole down because there's a whole lot here that you guys need to know, and what a better time to talk about it. So that brings me to as him and I have bantered and exchanged insults with each other on social media about, well, what do you know? Because obviously Mr. Badger there feels he's an attorney, so he's obviously superior to everybody else on the internet, which I completely support that whole persona online and what it does. Um, we have continued to banter back and forth about what the requirements should be for insurance companies, right? And while we're doing that, and he's posting that clearly on this one post, and you go find him on LinkedIn. His stuff's public, so you can see him insulting me and me insulting him back. It's a good quality, maybe Monday morning entertainment there for everybody. While basically his default position is that the adjusters are trained and knowledgeable and smart and they're doing the right thing and all the shops and contractors are doing the bad thing. This one comes across. So this is an Allstate homeowners claim. We get a lot of homeowners questions. I think when people go out and just kind of search insurance companies, the people probably producing the most content really ends up being us these days. And so we get things. It helps that Holly in our office had 20 years actually with Allstate as a homeowners adjuster. So that we get these and I kind of chuckle because of the overlap. All right, so this is a homeowner's claim. Obviously, it's a fire. I'm going to say based on this is purely theory, not fact. This is a kitchen fire in a way because we're talking about additional living expenses at this point. And this is the adjuster who represent Allstate. We have been notified that there is soot everywhere. So I'm going to assume that that's either like Surf Pro or probably somebody that they've hired to come in and do mitigation, temp repairs, etc. and that there is no refrigerator or stove. That's why I'm thinking this is a kitchen fire because there's the specific mention of a stove and a refrigerator. We will review for additional living expenses, ALE, for food and meals only at this time. So here's an adjuster saying we know there's soot everywhere. We know that your stove and your refrigerator don't work. So the only thing we're going to consider right now under your ALE is going to be additional food and meals. This is inconvenient slash uncomfortable, but does not make your home uninhabitable. Okay, Mr. Badger, this is where I want you to pay attention. This is who customers are dealing with. This is an Allstate policyholder who's been a policyholder for a while, who has a kitchen fire that is trying to make a claim. And right now they're asking for additional living expenses to go move into a hotel. Typically, small kitchen fires, it's not like they're going to get you an apartment or find you a house or whatever. They're going to put you up at a home inn and suites that's got the little kitchenette in it, and you're going to live in there for a couple of weeks while Surf Pro does all of the mitigation, cleaning, cleans your furniture, cleans your drapes, cleans your carpet, cleans all that stuff to make the home inhabitable so you can move back in it. It's not that you're going to do your ALE until you have no, until the home is completely remodeled and done. ALE for this typically is get you out, do what we need to do to make the home inhabitable, try to get you back in, right? Then we would take over where ALE would only cover like meals and whatever. This is an Allstate employee. This isn't like a really dumb cat adjuster that got hired for the fires out in California that this is their first deployment and they don't know what they're talking about. This is an Allstate employee. But let's break it down. First of all, if you are an Allstate employee and you are a homeowner's adjuster and you go and inspect homes that have fire damage, you are required to wear a specific type of particulate respirator to protect your lungs when you are around those homes. And as an adjuster, I'm only going to be in that home for, I mean, a typical kitchen fire. I may be inside it 2, 3 hours scoping, measuring, doing what I need to do to start working on the estimate. Hell, I don't even think Allstate's sending out people to write estimates anymore. But you have a requirement. Why do you have that requirement? So why, as a company, do I have a policy that if I'm going to be around soot, I have to have a particular respirator on? Well, because what is soot? Soot is microscopic particles that contain chemicals, acids, and heavy metals. So heavy metals are one of those things that always, if you're in the auto body business and you're working with filler, sanding dust, carcinogenics that are in it, and refinishing, low VOCs is actually extra heavy metals. And so it's more dangerous on our lungs than it was 30 years ago. That's really bad. It can cause respiratory diseases such as COPD. It can lead to cardiovascular problems, and it can also cause cancer. Now, I don't think respiratory disease, cardiovascular problems, or cancers are inconvenient and uncomfortable. To me, those are things that make the home uninhabitable. In other words, I think they're so bad that I don't even want my employees breathing them for just a couple of hours while they're inspecting homes because I'm well aware of what the potential workers' compensation blowbacks could be. But you want to tell a customer that they should live in that. That's what our consumers right now, and on a different scale completely with auto, but Mr. Badger, this is what we're dealing with. If we didn't have to deal with this, then there probably wouldn't need to be such a need for public adjusters, contractors, even roofers. And I get it. I used to have to deal with roofers, and you have a hailstorm come in, it drops some little pea-sized stuff, doesn't even put dents on the roof veins, and everybody wants a new roof. I mean, I understand how frustrating some of those people are when they go through a neighborhood and go, "You need a new roof," but they're not necessarily the problem. They're a symptom of other problems in the industry. But I'm not going to do away with something. This is why I need public adjusters. This is why I need IAs. This is why I need people to do RTAs. This is why we need all of these things, because this is the type of advice that's not just, it's put in writing. Like, this is an email sent to a customer for the love of donuts. And Mark Olson, by the way, I know you're listening. We got to talk about you stealing my catchphrase on the Wednesdays. Ask Mark. Yeah, I'm gonna visit with you with that later. But or you could just send me a dozen donuts I'm sorry for stealing your phrase, but go watch the Wednesdays Ask Collision Hub um, episode with Mark on there. But this is why we have those things. And then I always say, but wait, there's more. So let's drill it down, right? Like as we drill into all these things and sort of why we are where we are, we have more information kind of coming out of what's going on in Oklahoma. So State Farm's on a five-alarm fire defense in Oklahoma right now. And there's a reporter for Oklahoma Watch named J.C. Hallman. He's ran a series of articles. Uh, and so why is State Farm appealing and working so hard and asking other associations to come file these writs with the courts in Oklahoma to try to kick out the attorney general? Let me just give you a little bit of history here. This isn't the court cases, class actions, and the Attorney General of Oklahoma inserting themselves into this cases versus State Farm is not new. There's a lot going on. You can go to the Oklahoma Watch website. You can read all these articles and really get some back on story on there. But because of our suit question and our suit SOOT, not SUIT. So because of the Allstate and kind of like I guess we'll follow this one all the way down the rabbit hole. Part of these lawsuits, there is an allegation, and so I want to be clear, this is an allegation, that in 2020, State Farm decided to try to mitigate or put together a project and a committee on what they were spending on wind and hail. They called it the Wind and Hail Model Enhancement Team, right? And it is alleged that what that team project came out of, what the result was that number one, there would be very early denial. Like right out the gate, we're going to deny the claims. Like we're gonna, deny partial, whole, whatever. We're just going to hit them real quick with a no. Hmm. Anybody experiencing that right now on auto, where as soon as the claim's reported, there's a letter that says we ain't paying for this and you only got 96 hours or 98 hours or whatever? Is that ringing any bells with anybody? Okay. All right. It was going to focus on early denial and that the goal was to reduce severity by 50%. That the partners, we'll use that in quotes, for this wind hail model enhancement team was Accenture and Hague Engineering. Now, I want to focus on Hague Engineering because if those of you that are insurance nerds, that's probably scratching a little thing in the back of your brain. And here's why. In 2006, Hague Engineering was sort of responsible for State Farm losing a $9.9 million class claim in the state of Oklahoma. Now, that 2006 loss came off the heels of Katrina. So Hague Engineering was very, very prominent in the Louisiana, Mississippi State Farm lawsuits where you had the IAs, the sisters that said, that State Farm was making up engineering reports and throwing out things that didn't keep with their narrative and all of that. Hague Engineering was front and center in that. As a result of Katrina and the 2006 case, State Farm, and you can go find it, sent out a press release that said that they were terminating their relationship with Hague. Well, apparently it didn't last long, and Hague is right back in the family again and was part of this alleged initiative in 2020. Now, the lawsuit going on and several other lawsuits that have kind of happened since then, so since 2020 and where we are now in 2026, have been trying to get a hold of all of that data. Obviously, if somebody knows the name and knows who's involved, there is somebody that used to work at the farm that was a part of that has given everybody some information. Or what used to happen was you'd get a discovery notice and somebody would be like, oh, I got a copy of that. And they'd send it in. I can remember a big problem in the 90s we used to have the claim manual, and it was this big thing that sat in the back of the office. It took up a whole 6-foot table. And every time there was an update to the claims, the home office claims manual, you were supposed to take out, destroy it, and put what in. People saved copies of that crap in their desk. And then so when you'd get this discovery notice, you'd end up having people send a bunch of stuff in. Okay. So what's interesting if we read Ian's post over here on the I Hate State Farm, which is a fabulous Facebook group, by the way. Not There are some people that just get in there to complain. That's cool, but occasionally you get really good pieces of information. What started to happen is that so your Oklahoma Watch started watching court cases, and you'd have these court cases happen where like the person would file a claim and they need a whole roof, but they get an offer for $1,400, right? Or yeah, 14. So then you get a court case, and then as soon as the court case starts to happen, miraculously there's a settlement offer. Like, and so some of you have said, "Hey, Kristen, when my customer files for small claims court, they settle for us before we can even get to small claims court." Yeah, amazing how that works, right? But so they get these no's, and I want to say it's not like a direct no. It's not, or a full no. It's not like they're saying, we're not paying your claim, but they're offering some sort of like really pathetic amount of money. And then as soon as something happens, boom, here's like a real amount of money. He says here that, and then at certain point in this first group of cases, what happened was that State Farm suddenly settled all of them, sometimes for really surprisingly high amounts of money. A 20 or $30,000 claim settled for as much as $3 million. All right, that's pay to make it go away. If we go back to where we were, like, so when I've got a video out there, it's the engineering of consent and claims, where it sort of talks about, hey, if we do have litigation that pops up here and there, it will be very few, and then we'll be able to handle them the right way. The one thing every insurance company hates is discovery, right? Like you spend lots of motions, you do everything you can, you try to say that things are your proprietary business practices and shouldn't be discoverable. Like you really work very hard to keep that out of there. So I got an insurance company suddenly running around and trying to settle a bunch of claims. And here's where we're at. So if you go back to that Oklahoma Watch article from December 1st, and the November 7th pretrial hearing was mainly about the documents. So we want the documents and we want to use them in court. that's that's where we were, right? That's the whole part of the discussion. Um, Internal communications, performance evaluations. This is what's great because if you have a company initiative, you want performance evaluations on the people that were involved. Like I can't just say I'd like every homeowners adjuster's performance evaluation. But when somebody's not following a company initiative, people like to write that on performance reviews. And that generally is when I can go, oh, what's the name of that thing again? Like you mentioned it in their performance review that had either done a really good job. I love it sometimes when you do this with managers because you find out they're special projects. Like there's so many special projects I did in the insurance industry that were never like they weren't like official. There's not a record or whatever anywhere, but sometimes on a performance review, you'll have somebody write, um, made themselves available for a home office project and spent 4 weeks in Bloomington. Like I have one on my performance review was like 3 weeks in Bloomington doing closed file reviews for what was the diminished value case out of Georgia. And then we had to go to, like, so it's like, oh, that's great. Like, what were you doing in the file review? Like, there's so many things in performance reviews. So obviously, this is a very, very good attorney, very, very good law firm. Training manuals. There's a reason why a lot of insurance companies don't have training departments anymore, is because those people, when they would get deposed, that were typically pretty dangerous. Any documents that are entitled "The Art of the Conversation," please, like write down or text yourself right now as you're listening. Go Google "The Art of the Conversation," in which it was a class on how to talk to policyholders so you could talk them into taking less money on their claim. Like, so I loved this one because last week when I released the whole engineering of consent and claims, a bunch of people were and behind the scenes going, it's fake. She makes all this shit up. It's just her trying to, swindle shops out of money. No insurance company actually thinks this way. None of them actually have committees or projects where they study stuff on how to like talk people into taking less or doing what or talk body shops into cheating themselves. All of that's fake. All right, here we have an attorney in a pretrial hearing against State Farm asking for a document titled "The Art of the Conversation." Purportedly, it says about how to talk to policyholders. Great. All right, let's make a tie-in. So let's go back to where we said earlier that State Farm's purpose of this whole group in 2020 was to reduce severity by 50%. Last week on a Friday, I think it was Friday, it was Thursday or Friday, this little article comes out from one of the trade magazines, and here's what it says. Increases of 30 to 40% in the out-of-pocket expenses for customers over 6 months that are so this shop is reporting that over the last 6 months, the amount of money that customers are having to pay out of pocket is skyrocketing. Do you think that maybe the same strategies that were deployed in 2020 in the homeowners division to reduce the severity of wind hail claims have been deployed in the auto industry to reduce the severity of collision damage? Maybe, maybe just a little bit. Maybe, do you see the parallels between what's playing out in the court world right now and the homeowners, and then what you're experiencing right now on the collision side of things? It is real. There is, I tell people that's the good news. It doesn't feel like good news. There is a real pattern, plan, purpose, SOP to everything that you're experiencing in the shop right now. The good news of it is that if once you know that, then there are things you can do to sort of, I don't want to say combat it, but there are things you can do to get to do things a little bit better. Now, I can't magically make cars show up to your door. Nobody can do that for you. Well, maybe Tom Zoblin and his marketing thing. I don't know. But all right. So I released a video last week. You can go find it. For all of you people that were posting online that it's all crazy and I made it up just because I want to make money, this is my told you so moment. Because all of you can now go read the documents from the State Farm cases out of Oklahoma. Come back and tell me how you feel about them, right? But we have an insurance and customer relations 20 group. I really think that you should be in our, we call it our VIPs, and that you get all 6 20 groups. But if you're only going to pick one, I think this one is one that everybody needs to be in this year because I am just so tired of the crap. I'm tired of people like Stephen Badger pretending as though the insurance companies are these honorable people. I was one, so I mean, I guess I get to talk about them. You know, it takes one to know one. I get to talk about them in a lot of ways. I'm frustrated with it. That's not what being an adjuster is about. We don't do these things. We don't seek to get out of payment. We don't seek to reduce. We seek to pay what we owe. That's our job. And that was always what your true north was be. And if you stood on that, then you would never have to worry about what was going to show up in a courtroom, what was going to get discovered, what emails we're going to read, because I pay what I owe. I love it. Robert Maherl. We pay what we owe, not a penny more, not a penny less. Right? I still have that poster. It was in the claims training center in Bloomington. It's actually outside my office door right now. It used to be in the training classroom of the old building. If that's your true north, you never have to worry about getting in trouble. Once you diverge from that, once you start having conversations, and I so respected, there's so many wonderful people that have that have had the displeasure of having to be my boss. I mean, I'm sure that they used to sit in corporate and go, please God, don't make her report to me. But so many wonderful people. And that you hear people come in and go, well, why don't we just do blah? And you see them raise their hand and go, stop. We're not ever even going to have those conversations. We're going to do our job. We don't worry about what anybody else. I used to have, I used to get pissed off at body shops all the time, and I had a boss that used to tell me to shut up. What the body shop was doing was none of my business. My job was to pay the claim. That was my job. You do your job, they do their job, and then we're going to be fine. You look for everything you can to pay what you owe. Appreciative of that. All right, if you want a copy of the paper, so I've recreated, I want to say recreated. I took the paper from the original rollout days of DRP and what our strategy was going to be for DRP and how it was going to affect body shops. I've taken out some of the content that I believe is the intellectual property of an insurer. So it's not in there. So it is, kind of blacked out. I feel like it's a CIA document in a way. That stuff's been removed. If you want a copy of that paper, I'm gonna give it to you for free. You just got to go on and click the link and ask and say, I don't want anything else but the free paper. If you want the rebuttal paper, which is what you see on the screen, how to take those principles, this strategy, this art of the conversation. I mean, I do think it's interesting that they're calling it something different now. And right behind me on my bookshelf, if some of you zoom in, you will understand why they called that the art of the conversation. There's a book up there that actually was given to me by Mr. Rust. But anyway, so but Please join. You can join and I'll give you the rebuttal paper, and you can sign up. And we've already had our January 21st class, but we have the February 17th class is going to be argue like a lawyer, but think like a judge. And then the March 17th class is how to influence adjuster behavior. That's not a bad thing. It's not evil. They just don't know what they don't know. And so there's some things and some strategies and techniques and things we can do to get them to talk to us. Like, don't just give me the speech or the line that you were told to say. I want to have a talk with you. All right, that's my rabbit hole and my tinfoil hat of all the conspiracy that's going on. Please pay attention to this all happenings in the homeowners world and all happenings around laws dealing with public adjusters and any arrest, whether that's like what's going on in Iowa or what we saw in Florida, because all that sort of is going to end up applying to us over here on the auto side. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about PPG and what they got going on. I feel like it's the Hatfields and the McCoys in a lot of ways. All right, so full disclosure, I grew up spraying PPG. I actually have a three, okay, I have three tattoos. Okay, one of them is I do have a State Farm tattoo, and the other one is I have a Pete the Painter tattoo. Right, so I grew up painting PPG. Love that company. Um, Most of the people I know they closed down the Strongsville, Ohio office. And so I don't really know a lot of people left at PPG anymore, but had a love of that product. You can see my Pete's probably wait on my shelf. See, you can see my Pete the painters right there, right? So, um, um, that's wait, gotta stop sharing. So you can see my Pete the painters, but Pete's right there over my shoulder. So my Pete bobbleheads. But I feel very Hatfield and McCoyish. So there's been this like sort of rumor, not really a rumor about, it's not a feud, but this competition brewing between 3M and PPG. And that PPG is really morphing what they are as a company. And a lot of people have said that it's PPG trying to go head to head with 3M. Some of that is there, right? PPG bought Sim. Sim makes the adhesives and seam sealers and all the stuff that also 3M makes. Now they've announced that they now own Colad, and they make all of the paint prep stuff. So PPS cups, all that sort of stuff. Colette has paint suits, all of that. They've bought Finexa. They have equipment. So if you think about 3M's tools, whether that's file belt sanders, DAs, vacuums, all of that. So this company, and there's another company out of Denmark that there's a third company they announced last week that they had acquired. But they also make abrasives. And isn't that purple abrasive very similar to something else that some of you may have seen in the industry or may be using? I don't know. I'm having a hard time putting my name around it. I mean, instead of like an it looks like that's an octagon, kind of like a stop sign, but maybe the other one has more of a cube to it. I don't know. My memory's a little weird right now. Um, but so that basically means that PPG now has all the refinishing products, and they really have a full line of disposables. They've got sandpaper, they've got tape, they've got mixing cups, they've got equipment, they've got vacuums, they got everything. And so I'm not so sure when we think about the distributor market, ooh, that seemed in there. If it's really a head-to-head competition with 3M, or are they looking at becoming very much more like a Sherwin-Williams in a lot of ways? Um, and I think we'll have to see how this plays out. I'm very interested in what this means to distributors. There are platinum distributors that only deal with PPG. And then I think some of the largest distribution of PPG comes through channels that also distribute other paint lines. It's going to be interesting to watch. I know one particular, well, not one particular, our European-based paint companies have always done a lot with this collab. Like they pop up in all the videos, which now makes me wonder if there's going to be some dirty deleting going on. And am I going to get a lot of requests over the next week to reshoot a lot of videos so that certain products are no longer showed or promoted or any of that? Because if I'm AXO or Exalta, I can't work with Colette anymore. I can't have them in my training centers. I can't have them in my videos. I can't have any of that. Like I'm gonna have to make sure that it's all gone. So, um, very interesting move. Should we be worried? Yes. Um, one of the things that was when people we saw the DRP agreement from State Farm change at the in the fourth quarter of last year to talk about paint materials, and a lot of shops were like, what's going on? We knew, the rumors around PPG and State Farm having a lot of meetings together, which is that's nothing new. Paint companies always meet with insurance companies. I'd say every insurance company's probably been to Bloomington within the last 6 months. But one of the things that people talked about was that really paint's not a singular solution. Like there's so many things that body shops have to have that support that, and that's cups and mixing sticks and all that, whatever. Um, Okay, but have they now just got the answer to that? So as PPG's buying all of these things that are more of the consumables around the paint or finishing process, are they closing those loops a little bit? And that's one of the things, that uh, was sort of like a Sherwin's um, that was a little they had a little bit more control over is because they owned their distribution and they had all of that within there, and so that they were but it's going to be very, very interesting to see where this goes. I'm going to be very interested to see um, how shops change what they're using over the next, like, so will you suddenly start to see, like, for instance, you saw PPG announce, I think the first of last week, that was it Certified Collision, the group of shops that are only OE certified had selected PPG as their singular paint line. And then I was like, well, how does that work when you're Porsche or Audi or Mercedes? Like, don't you have to have another paint line for those guys? But I mean, will those shops also start to begin to change the consumables that they use? So this is very interesting to watch for a paint company to be buying up products and services that are outside of the liquids, and then what does that mean, and then how will that affect jobbers and distribution? What's going to happen with the platinum distributors? What's going to happen with the distributors that have multiple paint lines? Will those distributors that have multiple paint lines, will they be able to stay? I mean, so or will it, or will that be affected? And then what does that do to you guys? That do you have to change paint brands? It's just going to be very interesting to watch. I always said 2026 is like the year of the popcorn. We're just going to spend lots of days with our just popping popcorn and going, what else can happen now, right? Like, but wait, there's more. Sort of the ShamWow of collision repair. So that one will be interesting to keep an eye on. I'm not so sure PPG's done. This is three early in the first quarter, first month, the first quarter announcements. So we'll be interested to see what else they kind of do. Um, I had thought that they had already had a deal with Merca. So this Finexa or whatever is completely different. I've never used their paper. So I don't know if it's any good or not. I don't know what it lasts. I just know that that is purple and it looks an awful lot like something else in the industry. So that was bold. Okay. Um, speaking of bold moves in the industry for distribution, Celette's making some moves. Most all of Celette, well, there's that East Coast problem, but most all of Celette is distributed out of the Celette North American offices, Texas, and then there's one over in California. Not like a robust distributor network. Then I think that's one of the things that people, when you're looking to buy something, you're looking, well, who has it? Who can service it? Who's close to me and whatever. So Celette has added a new distributor, Sullivan's Equipment. They're basically in Indiana. They're in Indianapolis, Indiana as their home base. They're everywhere with other branch offices. Craig Sullivan was a car liner distributor for a long, long, long time. He's also a drag racer, so there's that. But he's now he's out with the blue and in with the red. He's going to be distributing Celette's equipment, which is really good because we need support. He's in Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. I have lots of shops in that Michigan, Minnesota area that have recently switched over to all Celette. So I know they're going to be excited to have more of a services present. If you ever had a chance to work with Craig in any of his former capacity, he has a great network of technicians, distribution, delivery. He's got some really great training centers. And so I know they're switching all of that over. When he decided to get out of the blue business, We had a conversation, and I think a lot of people just sort of default assume that Celette is for Mercedes and Porsche and Audi and all that. And then you get in there and you get to messing with the products and you realize it does Toyotas and Hondas and General Motors and whatever. That you get real excited about how versatile that equipment is. It does have a little bit of a lower price point. Way more, I'm going to say body friendly. Like the stuff weighs half of what the Carliner stuff does. I can actually take the grates off the bench on a Celette. I could not do that on a Carliner. Like each of those things must have weighed like 80 pounds. So there's a lot there. But Craig, welcome to the Red family. Welcome to Celette. I know they're very excited to have you. It was sort of the talk of SEMA. So just know that France, I guess you're like me, Craig, you're infamous, right? So France is very excited that you're around. And I know that Bob, James, Fritz, all of the guys from Celette in North America are very glad you're around. So if you need any equipment, give Sullivan's Equipment a call, or you can just call me. I don't have any of the answers or the prices, but I'll walk you through whatever you think you need. Um, let's talk a little bit about the promise of free. I mean, I think all of us know that you don't get anything in this industry for free, and you get nothing in life for free. But here we are again, having to have another discussion around free trials. I started over the last couple of weeks getting a lot of complaint messages and emails around the Rev ADAS platform. Shops had been contacted. Some shops had reported that it was like a cold call kind of thing. And not talked into, I mean, you accepted it. It's sort of like the second step on the Snap-on truck, right? After that, it's consent. Um, a free trial. All right, folks, anything that's a free trial that requires your credit card is not a free trial. It's a gym membership, right? So shops signed up for it. And if you don't cancel, they will lock you into multiple months that you have to continue paying, whether you want the product or not. It's kind of like CCC has 2 years. Rev apparently doesn't have 2 years. It's like, I think it's either a quarter or it's 6 months or whatever. So it's better than getting caught with your with a CCC deal. But there is no such thing as free. So if you sign up for any trial, the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you're going to remember to cancel it if you do want to try it and they want a credit card, or don't give them a credit card, or don't try it. Companies, if your product is worth a damn, then you should be okay with people having a free trial. It's one of the reasons I love Yanni and Eagle MMS. It's month to month, right? If it's not working for you and I'm not giving you any value, I don't want your money, right? And I respect the hell out of Yanni for that. Um, if a company doesn't think that their product, or they don't believe in their own product enough to give somebody a multiple month or a 30-day free trial with zero penalty, zero bite back, zero whatever, then there's probably a problem there, right? But if you do it, you will be stuck. We wrote back and talked to a couple of people. I completely, I understand. You signed up and you agreed to that. You agreed that if you didn't cancel by X date, you were going to be stuck for however many thousands of dollars to pay out the contract until it was over. In today's market, most shops just don't have that money, and it hurts. And then you feel like you were taken advantage of because you're just trying to catch a break, and here's one other person going, nope, you got to pay me, and you owe me a couple $1,000s for something that you might not have ever used and that you're not going to use. So the way you avoid that, people, is don't get in those situations. So if somebody comes to you and they want you to try something, but they want you to sign up and give a credit card, just say no. If you have signed up for a free trial for anything, this is your warning. Go and look at what the renewal date is, and either put a reminder in your phone or something, or go cancel it today. Whatever you need to do to not get hit with this. But there still are companies out there that are making shops sign these long-term contracts, and you don't even know whether you're going to use the product. Some people have had to, like, for instance, you sign up for one, but then your insurance company says you have to use another, whether that's Opus or whatever, and so then this is like wasted money, right? In a lot of ways. So that's your fair warning. I guess when I get 3 or 4 messages, there's a pattern. If I'm getting 3 or 4, there's probably more people out there, and there's probably somebody else that's heard from somebody else. So just be aware. Let's talk about the real issues with ice. Winter Storm Fran came across the United States, and for a lot of us, we're like, yes. I know that sounds bad. You're not supposed to like be excited about the misery and hardship and whatever, but come on, we're in the collision business. We get excited when there's a hailstorm. We get excited when there's bad weather. We don't want anybody to get hurt, but we really would like some of those smallish claims. I don't want houses to feel like roof collapsers or carports or whatever. We're getting a lot of carport collapse claims right now. But it is interesting. So I thought because this popped up that we would watch this car wreck just to talk about some ice issues. So let's see if we can get that.
Uh-oh.
When you watch that thing hit that curb at the top. So just keep in mind, if you have ice damaged vehicles that are coming into your shop, people that have um, slid off the road, slid down the road, or whatever. When you watch that car, that's pretty good speed. That sucker was spinning at a really nice rate. That's probably, what do you think, 20, 25 miles an hour right there, I think it was going. Um, and you're hitting curbs. I think too often we mistake whether something has wheel damage or not with whether we're going to have suspension damage. Tires can take a pretty good amount of impact and not bust and maybe not deform the rim. But that energy goes somewhere and it goes through the suspension. So the biggest mistakes that I see after multiple years of being over cat teams and traveling and handling winter storms is that people get caught up in what they feel is that superficial physical damage. And one of the biggest things in these is going to be suspension and structure. So if you get them in, spend a little time, diagnose the suspension, diagnose the structure, have a good conversation with the customer about what happened. Um, I do also like this as an example of people. We always ask you what the weather conditions were when you had an accident, and people go, "Why does it matter?" I go, "Well, if I hit the brakes with a wet road or an icy road, nothing happens, man. I just slide and keep on going. If the road's dry and I hit the brakes, well, then there's all that opposite friction between the tires and the roadway, and I may induce some suspension damage just by that, or I may have tire issues or whatever. So um, just be aware that I know I've seen a lot. I've been out and about watching people come in and tow in and out and do some things, helping people out of ditches. People get a little caught up going, "Oh, I just went off the road and I've got some scratches and some pain issues," but there may be a little bit more. So don't be so quick. Every time I do inspections, and they're not really ride-alongs. In the insurance industry, they were ride-alongs, but when I go to body shops and sit and work with adjusters on drive-ins, or estimators at body shops on drive-ins, you go out and you look at I'm like, wait, step back, get about 10 feet away from this car and look at the wheelbase and look at some things and tell me what you see. And they're always like, "Oh my God, I would have missed that." And I go, "I know." I had a state trooper send me a picture a couple of weeks ago. He's following behind a Dodge Challenger, and you can see that the left rear wheel is kicked in, right? Like camber's way off compared to the right. But he's the first time in his life he noticed it. And it's one of those things where once you're back and you're looking at all that, you're like, damn. But most estimators, when we go out and look at a car, we get right up on it. We take four-corner pictures and we start feeling and touching, and we miss some things. So that's my friendly Fran warning. All right, let's talk about unfriendly warnings. So a lot of you have sent me messages and screenshots of there was a body shop in Florida that decided to take our name and call itself Collision Hub Auto Body Shop. I don't blame them. I have great SEO, so my Google rating is high. They just decided that would be a great name. I did serve them. I do have the trademarks and everything on Collision Hub, so I did have an attorney write up and send them a little. You got about 10 days to change your name, or she will send Larry to Florida if she has or whatever. They are permanently closed. I just found it was interesting that so I had a company try to send me a letter, or they sent me an email. It's basically a hostage notice. If you don't pay us, then this review is going to go up about your body shop. And I'm like, man, you really should have done some digging because that ain't my body shop. Also, they're permanently closed. So there's that. So I there's nothing that anyone can do to remove a review, folks. So if you get these where people, whether it's trying to hostage you for a Yelp review or a Google review or whatever, um, consumers aren't that dumb. Like so make sure that you want to maintain your Google ratings and you want to do things, but sometimes everybody knows we all get a bad customer every now and then. So it's nothing wrong with going in there and replying to, I'm sorry that you had that experience or you felt that way. This is what we believe. And, you're welcome to reach out to us, but don't spend any money paying for fake reviews on closed businesses that technically, if you're not smart enough to use Google appropriately to realize that that's not me, why would I give you money? That just it just doesn't seem to make much sense whatsoever. But then we'll talk about one that ended also a little bit. All right, so this one popped up last week. There was a page that was created on LinkedIn in December, as well as a website, and they called it collisionhub.eu. And the only reason that I think I saw this, it popped up in my feed because old Steve there, who we've covered on some other shows, had commented. I found it very interesting the people that were commenting on it. It was just the same people from the same paint companies, but there we go. All right, so they posted this. Basically, they're the collision hub of Europe, so to speak. It got me a little angry. I did I did send in or reach out and kind of go, what are you doing? Whatever. It ended up being a part of a project from a magazine, an industry trade magazine out of Italy. The guy that was running it worked for Italy. However, he said he had had multiple conversations with people from the United States. And I'm sure there was the people he mentioned were from two different paint companies in the United States. But I am happy to report that after, well, my first message was met with your trademarks and copyrights don't mean anything because we're in Europe, which is true, right? So the other thing I could get shut down because they were in Florida and I have the copyrights and the trademarks. They don't really do me any good in other countries. So that's true. That's doesn't really give you that's not an excuse for copying somebody else's stuff, so to speak. But anyway, within like 24 hours, they did change the name. I believe they're calling it Collision Review now. So I think it's wonderful that Europe's going to have a place where they're going to not have advertorial content, where they're going to try to write um, more articles that are a little bit more poignant and less catchy for money. I think that's great that they have that. So if you go on LinkedIn and you find Collision Review from Europe or whatever, then I think you should happily participate. And I am very appreciative um, of uh, of the Europeans there for changing the name before there was any real drama. We'll just call it drama, right? Here's a little hint. There's a old standing meme, right? Or like joke. Never tell a woman to calm down. That it's just that never works out. Never email Kristen and tell her to calm down. It doesn't work out really well either. So all right. Well, thanks for hanging in on my conspiracy infested episode of Collision Coffee Talk. Please, please, please pay attention to what's going on in Oklahoma. Please pay attention to what's going on to homeowners in general. Allow yourself to read those things and then look for where those correlations are in the auto industry. You've heard me say for 10 years what we test and develop and what works in the homeowners, you eventually will find that over in auto. And that may include one day people percentage deductibles. That really may come to life in the auto where there's a 10% deductible for collision and a 30% deductible for comprehensive. Just like wind hail is a higher percentage deductible than fire in the homeowner. So pay attention to all of that. If you have questions, comments, concerns, you want to complain, or you just want to like say hi, that's Melanie. Don't reach out to me. So just Melanie at Collision Hub for anything that you need. I am looking for. I'm going to be out most of this week, family surgery. And then we've got some really cool classes that we're going to roll out. Our LMS has been migrated over to a different server. And then Holly, who I mentioned earlier with her 20 years of experience with Allstate, has been developing, she's re-releasing Claim School. So as if you were an adjuster, we're going to allow everybody in the industry to go through that training because clearly the insurance companies aren't going to teach it anymore. Um, and she's finishing up the courses on that. So I'm hoping probably within the next 3 or 4 weeks, I'm going to be able to show you guys Claim School, and give your shops, your adjusters, your customer service people, your estimators, a chance to go through that training and sort of get a little bit more understanding. But we'll see you next week on next Monday's Coffee Talk. And don't forget Melanie if you need anything. Thanks for hanging out with me. Bye.